I'm going to, just while people are joining, I will share the agenda so folks can take a look at it, and then we'll jump right in. As I said in my email, which I just sent, I think, to the members, we had changed up the order a little bit to accommodate a schedule. So you'll see that the biennial report conversation with Eitan will be basically right at the top after we do a quick welcome and review of the agenda. But again, I'll give time to get us to a quorum.
I may not take all of 10 minutes either.
Totally fair. I'm hoping most of my time assessments are incorrect and are over some assumptions.
Right.
Looks like we've got just 3 spots.
Wow.
I know Tyler's running a little late. Stop that now, and we can look at that agenda later. Let me see where. Jeffrey, Dale, me.
Grant
just got here. Hey, Grant. Yeah, so a couple more.
Yes.
Closing in. Anybody have anything exciting that happened this summer?
I finished my Requiem Mass.
Fantastic. I'm trying to think how we can use that as an RDAP meeting.
It's 2 hours long. Yeah.
There you go. All right, Derek's here. Closer. Sheila, great.
Good. Yeah, you've got
6.
Hmm.
We're at 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, 7.
Perfect. That's quorum. Thank you for checking my math. So again, I'll pull up and there's Susanna to make it even over the top.
Right.
Let me pull up the agenda here for folks to see. And I'll paste it when we finalize it into our chat. But welcome back. I think I had the pleasure, and maybe other people did too, of going over our minutes for the last 6 months to make sure I had reread them, and there were a number of just sentences that petered off into nothing, so I tried to clean those up. But it was a really good reminder of a lot of the work that this group had engaged in over the previous 6 months, and certainly as an extension of the previous 7 years. And I think a lot of that work, at least as I was experiencing it, was continuing to move incrementally forward as we look at both how RDAP is framed in this moment of leadership transition, how we're preparing ourselves for that, and kind of looking forward at sort of what RDAP wants to be and do in the face of a lot of work that is certainly possible and being asked of us. And also looking at a legislative ask and how that'll roll forward. And I think we'll touch on a lot of that at today's meeting. So that's kind of my brief reorientation. I should also say, just for the time being, with Eitan having stepped off the board and not serving as the chair, the Attorney General has named me just as the interim chair until we as a group are able to work through how we want membership to roll forward, and then ideally work at finding a new chair. I will say and open the floor to the fact that per the statute, this body elects a chair. And so if folks want to have an election, we certainly can do that at any point in time. I would entertain that. In the interest of trying to work through kind of this moment we're at with RDAP, my thought has been, I'm happy to just hold the space for a handful of meetings, by which I mean hopefully 3. And then ideally we'll be ready to transition the leadership to a chair that we can get behind and elect. Any questions on that point? In my email, at least at some point, I did threaten a little, maybe I didn't threaten this to everyone, maybe it was a smaller group, a little bit of an icebreaker. So I want to do that if you'll indulge me just for 5 minutes. And for folks, and I welcome the public members who are here as well as members of the board, what I would love to do is just as a quick reorientation and getting back together, if folks would just remind us, I don't think there's anyone new here. So I don't know if people need to reintroduce themselves, but we can do that as good practice. And then if you just want to say, like, what was the best meal you had over the last 2 or 3 months, or even just the best food, you know, a perfectly ripe tomato or what have you in your world, just as a means of kind of getting us back grounded, and then we'll jump right into the work. And as I said, the agendum is up here. I'll pull it up again when we review it. But I think folks have had a chance to take a look at it. So what I would ask is if somebody would, I think then everybody's got all the tiles are up on the board. If folks would, somebody wants to jump in and lead and then name someone else who hasn't gone yet. And you can just call on them to say what their favorite meal or food was. And hopefully we'll move with a little alacrity. And it's not too stressful because no one knows if it's the right answer.
I can go.
Go ahead, Anna.
So the best meal I had was one for my wedding. So in our wedding, all my international friends cooked something to share for all the guests. And the best one was the one that Jorgito's mom, my partner's mom, cooked. It was rice with chicken and shrimp. So that was the best meal we had because it reminded me of home. And I don't know, the fact that she was here cooking for us something Colombian, that felt very good. That's the one I'm gonna share. And Rebecca, maybe a New Mexican dish for you.
Ooh. All right, thank you for that. Rebecca Turner for the record, I felt like I was doing a legislative testimony thing from the Defender General's office, panel member, and good to see everybody. And yes, New Mexico, gosh, anything with green chili, but the chili rellenos in Albuquerque, northern Albuquerque, call me if you are there and I'll tell you the name because it was totally random stumble, but brilliant. Chili rellenos. So good to see everybody. Okay, how about Jeffrey Jones?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Interesting question. I think probably the best meal I had was the one that my granddaughter made for me. She made for me on my birthday. And it was very simple, and it was one of the best meals I ever had, I think.
No.
And Jeff, if you want to just call on someone else.
Let's see. This is a question. I can't do this. Who's directly below me? Derek, you're it.
Derek Medevnik, him, nice to see folks. Well, I think the first thing that popped to mind was just this past Friday evening, I sort of had a moment where the various humans who I'm responsible for were in places that didn't require me, and I didn't need to be anywhere else, which is an uncharacteristic experience. And it was like 6 o'clock on a Friday in Richmond, Vermont, where I live. And there's a little bakery that just on Friday evening stays open for cocktails and little snacks. and I just sat down with a yummy snack of these deviled eggs with a little chili crisp that they put on top, very simple and lovely, and a Negroni, and it was a little slice of heaven. There it is. Yeah. I will pass over to Lisa. Hi, Lisa. Let's see.
Good evening, everybody. So good to see you. Lisa Ryan, she, her pronouns, Community Inclusion Director at the Vermont Criminal Justice Council, also known as the Vermont Police Academy. Let's see. I'm thinking about my husband. We've been trying to do like designated salads one day a week, and he has really mastered this homemade Caesar dressing that's delicious. And I'm very particular about my dressings, so I'm proud of him for trying many options and finding the one that works. I will pass it to Aton.
Hello everyone. Eitan Nasreddin Longo, the outgone chair of the panel. It wasn't the whole meal wasn't as remarkable as the appetizer. I had an absolutely exquisite carpaccio this summer in Montreal. That was amazing. So, Sheila.
Thank you, Eitan. I hope everybody ate dinner. Oh man. So what I'm gonna actually say, Sheila Linton, she, her pronouns, panel member and executive director, co-founder of the Root Social Justice Center. I have been fortunate enough to be in a work environment where we center BIPOC restaurants and caterers. And so throughout the summer, as well as throughout the route, including September 20th, which is our 12th year anniversary, we have a lot of different catered food from various different people of what we would call ethnic here. And so it has been wonderful to have Jamaican food from Mama Jules and to have her maple jerk chicken. It's been amazing to have 802 Soul Kitchen's sweet candy yams. It's been awesome to have Chris Freeman's Odell's Soul Enrican's empanadas and spicy barbecued ribs that fall off the bone. And it's been great to have Camila's Afghan food of rice and beans.
Now you're just bragging.
So yeah, so yay for me. I'll pass it to Susanna.
Hi, everybody. Susanna David from the Office of Racial Equity, representing the Office of Racial Equity. And one of the best meals I've recently had is a meal that I ate over the course of 2 days. And it was a humongous maple cotton candy that I got at the county fair. And that is a meal because it satisfies the heart. Thank you. I shall now turn it over to, who do we have? Dale.
Hi there, Dale Manning, Mulhegan Band of the Cossack Abenaki Nation. Probably one of the favorite things that I've eaten is cream horn with pistachio cream filling, which I've worked on being the baker now for Meals on Wheels of Lamoille County in my retirement.
Wow.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I will pass it on to Reverend Mark Hughes.
Good evening. I am stumped. I am completely stumped. But, I am going to say pass, but I'm going to, God, I just want to say something so badly, but I just have nothing right now. I will say, well, I know, I got it. Okay, so Empress Levi's Soul Food And thank you very much, Sheila. They were at First African Landing Day, and they I think one of the things that she prepared was her baked macaroni and cheese, which was ridiculously dope. So that was really, yeah, that's the big one. Reverend Mark Hughes, Executive Director of the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance and the co-chair of the Health Equity Advisory Commission. It's good to see you all again. Happy fall.
And Reverend Mark, if you want to just tag someone else.
Oh, you had to do that to me. Who's looking? Did Derek go yet?
He did.
Oh, going it,
I
Tyler?
think Tyler, yeah.
Okay.
I'm
and then
here.
Grant.
Hey, Tyler.
Okay, and I'll know to pass it to Grant next. I'm guessing the prompt is a wonderful meal that we
Oh
have
yeah,
had
just
had
anything you
recently.
ate.
Oh
Anything
yeah.
you ate.
Apologies for showing up a little late. I was picking up the boys. My name's Tyler Allen. I'm the Commissioner Designated Appointee from DCF. And I would say a recent meal that I had was wonderful. We made a coconut cauliflower curry at the house. I'm a big fan of Indian foods in general, or foods with spice to them. So we had to tone it down a little bit for the little ones, but they are slowly expanding their palate to be able to handle a little bit more of the heat. So yeah, we had that, and I actually still have some leftovers coming at me probably within the next day or two because it was a big amount. So I'm gonna do that one, and I will hand it to you, Grant.
Laura, after, don't forget her.
All right. Hi, everyone. It's good to be back. My name's Grant Taylor. I've been a member of the panel for about a year now. Let's see. I don't get too creative, so I'll just say that I had a delicious chicken honey sriracha sandwich, and that was fantastic. So, yeah, I'll pass it on to Laura.
Thanks, Grant. I'm Laura Carter. I'm an analyst in the Division of Racial Justice Statistics, which is in the Office of Racial Equity. My cat, I don't know if my cat is being annoying. So in May, I went on a girls' trip to Portland, Maine for one of my friend's birthdays, and I can't remember the name of the restaurant, but I had this morel mushroom risotto with pea shoots. And I don't like peas, but let me tell you, this was phenomenal. It was so good. And then a close second is I went to the Lowell Folk Fest, which is in Lowell, Massachusetts. And I had from the Trinidadian tent, and which was like near the Cameroon tent, because there's like a lot of vendors from different ethnic groups. And I had a goat stew with fried plantains, and it was phenomenal. I try to get it every year or anytime I'm there for that event. So I'm gonna pass it to Grace.
All right. I am the co-chair of the RJSAC. Oh, I'm Grace Ahmed also. Sorry, folks. Some of you don't know me. My thing that I got to eat this year is we have a peach tree in our front yard that like the squirrels really like to come and grab them the moment they get ripe. So we put bird netting all around it and we outfoxed the squirrels. And then my 18-year-old made a pie out of it. And that was all kind of awesome.
Cool.
You can pass the baton, Grace.
I don't know who else is.
Angela, Arsenault, Brennan.
Angela, let's go with.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Grace. My name is Angela Arsenault. I'm a state representative from Williston. And I would say my highlight, like food-related highlight of the summer was through a total stroke of immense luck. I ended up in Hawaii, facilitated through my husband's job, and we were at a resort on the island of Lanai, and the only restaurant was Nobu, and which is a like super high-end famous sushi restaurant, Japanese restaurant, and I don't eat sushi. And so I was a little worried, but the menu turned out to be immense and amazing. And the best thing I ate was a shiitake, like roasted shiitake mushroom salad. Like the lettuce was perfect, and the shiitakes were super, super thin and like kind of frizzled. And I don't know how they did it. It was some kind of magic, but the real joy for me was watching everyone I was there with who loves people who love sushi, like love sushi. And so every meal I got to watch people just be like, oh my God, this is so good. And I took a lot of joy. That was like fun to eat, my vegetable roll and watch them eat their raw fish. And it made my food taste better. It tasted great anyway, but so I will pass to Brannon, right?
Yeah, hi, I'm Brennan. I'm a data analyst with the Office of Racial Equity. So I went to Maine a couple weeks ago, had a lot of really great seafood there. But I think my favorite thing was probably the lobster spaghetti that I had one night. It was amazing. And I think, was that everybody?
I mean, I didn't get to go. It's all right. I'm gonna go sweet because no one really has gone. But my kid and I, on a rainy day, recently made a Boston cream cake, and it did require a dozen eggs and a pound of butter for one 8-inch cake. So I don't think about that too hard, and a pound of chocolate, but it was well worth it. So thank you all for, I found that entertaining, and foolishly have not eaten dinner, and I'm at the office, so I don't see that exhausting. And now whatever I eat is like going to be ashes in my mouth compared to what I've heard, but it's going to be all right. So thank you for that. Good to see you all. Good to hear everyone's voices. Very quickly, let me put the agenda up one more time. I think folks have had a chance to look at it, but I'll walk through it very quickly. Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we've gone through 1, we're going through 2. As I mentioned, Eitan, for scheduling reasons, will zip into the biennial report. Then, as I mentioned, I'd like us to just at least talk through the minutes, and then I'll beg again for a note taker and at least give an update on that. And then we move into some other updates from some of the subcommittees and other groups that we work with. So Grace will give an update on the Vermont Racial Justice Statistics Advisory Council. We missed that in June, so I appreciate Grace being here to keep us up to date now. Susanna will give an update on the small subcommittee that's working on membership. Rebecca will give an update on the legislative subcommittee, kind of what the plan is for that work. I have, depending on our energy, can walk us through sort of a bylaws document to determine, what we want to figure out in terms of how we operate as an organization, as a panel, beyond just what the statute requires of us. And then a number of people have mentioned this to me, so I thought it was worthwhile engaging more broadly is, can we, should we, will we meet this fall in person, and talking about what the logistics of that might be. And then very quickly, how we want to deal with the fact that Veterans Day, the 11th of November, is a Tuesday, and the second Tuesday of the month, and so we'll likely need to reschedule the meeting for that. And then, of course, time for public comments at the end. Any questions, concerns, or amendments to that draft agenda? Hearing and seeing none. Okay. So, Eitan, let me hand things over to you.
Thank you. Everybody, just to remind you, because this didn't get really put into any subcommittee or anything when we broke back in the late spring. Of course, as you all know, this Act 54 of 2017 gave birth to this panel. And our primary duty is to produce a biennial report. when we talked about this last, there was sort of a grumbly sound from you all about the idea of, oh, good, let's do that more. And I, if you remember, sort of put forth the idea of using the existing report minus the things that the legislature has done and simply resubmitting it with a cover letter explaining why a resubmission. I don't think that's too harsh. I doubt many of the legislators read it last session. So I wanted to put the other option is to simply write another report. I mean, there's always that if you want to do that. So what I'm encouraging you to do, and you don't have to do it tonight, obviously, is think about as the weeks go on from here, not too many weeks, vote about what you want to do. The last thing would be if you want me, since I have the institutional memory of doing these, if you want me to do the cover letter, I am willing to do that. That's the last bit. Okay? Any questions? Nope. All right. Talk to y'all later.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Ethan.
Sure. Now, how do we get the hell out of this? Oh, right there. Okay.
Good to see you. So there is a little bit of a decision point there. I think we can, I appreciate, and should have said it when he was here, appreciate his offer. Now that we've set up kind of what lane we take, I will add, and I need to just check the statute itself. There is a standing statute that says if the legislature hasn't updated any panel that is required to report annually within the last 5 years, and they no longer have to issue a report. I don't think I wouldn't recommend that we rely on that, even if it is applicable, but I float that out there because I know other commissions and boards have sort of looked to that statute and said we report when we have something to say. But I will put that on the agenda for the October meeting, and we can discuss. Does that work for? I should suggest that. Does that work for people that we can take a minute and think about independently, and then have a discussion now that Eitan's kind of laid out the options, and maybe folks will have other ideas. Any reaction to that? Any discussion around that, or does that make sense? Thanks, Lisa. Okay. I will add that to the October agenda. Thank you. All right. So looking back, so housekeeping, I know it was not exciting to do, but statutorily and because I think it's important, did folks have it? You don't have to react to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Did folks have a chance to read the minutes, those 6 meeting minutes? A tiny little bit. Thank you, Sheila. All right. My main question is just making sure actually that I captured in those minutes the attendees. So I'm going to just walk through. I won't pull them up on the screen, but I'll walk through. Actually, one little thing I might do, mostly as a public education point, is I'm going to just share my browser, and so this is the RDAP homepage that folks may have seen. It's in the AGO, the Attorney General's office, and it sits under community justice, but it's our own page, and it lists who's here, and then there are a lot of, it has our last 4 reports available, and then it has the agendas. I believe Eitan would say agenda, and then it has the minutes. So if you're ever looking for, you want to remind yourself of when we discussed something or how the discussion went, you can look here. With that as preamble, were there any amendments or changes to the February 11 minutes? Sheila.
I'm sorry. No, to the February, no.
I am totally happy to go broad and just have people shout out if they've got concerns on any of them.
Well, keep it in whatever order you got going on. I just
Okay.
wasn't paying attention to directions. I was a little slow. Go ahead. Not February now.
Okay. In the absence of objection, we'll finalize those minutes. How about March 11th? Edits, amendments, changes. Okay. In the absence of objection, we'll finalize that. April 8th.
That's where I just had a question.
Sure.
I noticed at the beginning, I think it's at the beginning, there's a paragraph and it says that I'm talking about something, but I don't know what I'm talking about. It says it references me and then I'm like, I don't know if it was cut off or
So right at the, here, let me pull it up. This is really helpful because I don't want to ascribe things to people. Oops, I got to click twice. So this is just to reference us. This is the draft April 8th minutes. And are you saying this paragraph?
I think so. Yes, I am.
So my recollection of that is, and I'm happy to add more context, this is the moment where AOE had determined, this is the waiver issue that the Trump administration was requiring AOE to confirm that we basically followed the law. And we were right in the moment between AOE saying, yes, everybody's got to sign it, and figuring out that was not the best course of action, and that we would send a letter instead that said, we confirm that we follow the law, and what you're asking us to do is above and beyond that. So I think that was what that discussion was. I'm happy to add more in. Does that ring a bell?
It does ring a bell. It's just not nuanced here in the minutes.
Totally. I
just
think that's a totally fair edit. Are you comfortable with this, Sheila? I'll probably tomorrow plug something in and send you the language, and if you're okay with it, we'll finalize it that way.
Sounds good.
Okay. Does that work for other folks on the April 8th minutes? How about the April, I think it was 29th special meeting we had? Any concerns, edits, objections? I'm gonna just keep rolling. Absent that, we'll finalize it. How about May 13th? Great. June 10th? Okay, terrific. Thank you for taking the time on that. We'll finalize all those. We'll pull draft off them. And in the future, I think it's probably good if our practice is just to look at the minutes at the beginning of the meeting and then go. Sheila, do you have another question, or did your hand pop back up?
I do have another question. I'm just wondering, I think we might have, but I don't know where it is. Did we ever get the description of the chair position?
We haven't gotten that from Eitan. Thank you for flagging that. I will follow up with him.
That was something in the minutes, and so I was just curious if we've had that. Thank you.
That is really important. So my quick plea for a note taker is that I haven't heard any, no one's reached out after posting it. What I plan to do is reach out to, I have it on a list here somewhere, a number of different organizations, Vermont Professionals of Color Network, the Vermont Law School, and maybe UVM also has a legislative program, just to try and see. It's not a tremendous amount of work, but it's really engaging and positive work. So if folks have other suggestions, I'm happy to hear them. For this meeting, I'm obviously not taking minutes. I'll either do them tomorrow, or we'll figure out some way of getting them produced before the next meeting. Okay. Moving on from there, Grace, it is over to you. Sorry, Grace, whenever you're ready.
Sorry about that. I put this on my phone and then I don't know how to use my phone. So the racial justice Statistics Advisory Council. I think the last time you really heard from us was when we were recommending H382, the Vermont Justice Transparency Act. We've been listening to, we got a report from the division and the Vermont State Archives and Records about leveraging functional analysis to study gaps in the state of Vermont. And heard about how their goals to identify gaps in how justice related data is collected, shared, managed, and governed. Some of their findings and discovery about emerging gaps, about ownership and access ambiguity, legislative gaps, life cycle gaps, overlapping responsibilities across agencies, inconsistent vocabularies and standards. Some of their recommendations, updating legislation where mandates or access are unclear, building comprehensive data dictionary across all justice agencies, creating justice technology asset inventory to streamline storage and reduce inefficiency, formation of data governance access pods, the DGAPs, that I imagine that you are familiar with. Ensuring consistent vocabulary, structure, and processes, focus on collaboration, transparency, and compliance. And then RJSAC has been beginning to focus on identifying a limited number of high impact, high discretion data points. You know, I'm a data scientist, so I love all the data and the dictionary of every single thing that exists. But I think for some purposes, it makes sense to focus down on what are really like a handful of data points that we could collect now, get a baseline, and then track those same data points over time to understand trends that would help with mitigation efforts. So I'll share our little brainstorm. I gave us some homework where people had, you know, think of 10 most important data points. If you get to 11, get rid of one or two. And so the list that we have all together includes bail, pretrial detention, sentencing, arrest rates, law enforcement interactions, diversion, probation and parole, what charges are brought, the demographics of the prison population, mental health access, recidivism, access to counsel, DCF removals of children, pleas, juvenile court referrals, and victimization rates. And that's kind of your preview. And then when we meet next, we're going to get more into the meat of what like a focused set of data points would be, with sort of the intention that not everything has to be at the whim of what is available, what's easy to get, what exists. There may be things that are just, these are the things that we really need to know. These are the 10 things that we need to know, and then plan around that to make those things possible. So that's kind of where we are with that. That's about it.
Thanks, Grace. I have a couple little questions, but does anyone else have questions? Well, I guess my main question is, are there written materials that, like, it's hard for me to conceptualize those data categories and kind of contextualize them as well. Is it possible to share some of that back? Because I know in previous meetings we've talked about the lack of data and the real importance of finding. I know there was legislative push last session, and hopefully it'll be picked up again this session to push for more data collection and ensuring the data collection occurs. So I think it'd be helpful for us to sort of see what that landscape looks like.
You're asking about like the things that we're thinking about as the high impact ones, or you're asking about the what we've found out about availability? I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
Both of those are, you have framed it better than I did.
Okay.
Both of those would be really helpful.
Okay.
And mostly I'm just, if you've already got documents that you're comfortable sharing with RDAP, so folks, who are interested can dive in. And so if it's helpful for us to provide any kind of engagement or outreach, it'd be good for, personally, it's just hard for me to hear it and
To just hear it, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely part of our issue is this, we're at like beginning stages of this. So it's not that it's not stuff that I can share with you. It's just that it's we kind of did a very brainstormy kind of something that was meant to like bring us focus and maybe get those like so we have, and I can try to share it into the chat. It's just it's going to take me a minute. I can't like do it while I'm talking because I can't do two things at once. But just for people's interest, there were ones that like popped up for every single. We had 5 people that answered it, and bail, pretrial detention, and sentencing came out on all 5 of those. And then some of the ones where like only one person came up with it, like victimization rates or DCF removals, that doesn't make them less important at all. I think that that's kind of the strength of having a diverse group, is that some of those things that come up once might also be just as impactful and maybe overlooked, because people were reading the RDAP reports from 2020. Sheila put in the chat, what are they? Did you get them from RDAP? So to answer, we're kind of doing an iterative process where we've read the RDAP recommendations. We had Pat Attilio made the H382 into an Excel spreadsheet to kind of break it down a little bit of what all those data points are. So we've had that to look at. I can share that with you as well. And then I kind of said, well, let's take a step back from these like big all-encompassing, right? I think in the 2020 RDAP report, you guys have a pretty extensive list of things in the appendix. So, and then we kind of take a step back and think like, well, if it wasn't all depending on all these other recommendations, like what would we come up with? And then we're going to, in our next meeting, really kind of get into the meat of marrying those worlds a little, I think. And like actually trying to come up with a solid set of things that would, then we would have, is it available or not available? If it is available, then we can grab it and we can kind of run with that now. And if it's not, then we'll have recommendations on that.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you, Sheila.
So thanks for answering those questions, Grace. An additional question to that. So I want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly, that you have read materials of the RDAP that has informed you all, but those categories that you just named off were formulated, it sounds like, internally with your data people, but informed by other resources such as the RDAP as well. That was sort of the question I was asking in the chat too, of where did your list come from, and how does it mirror or not what RDAP has made in suggestions? Because I believe we put out in our
I think
report
everything that we came up with is in an RDAP recommendation already. I don't think that we came up with anything that was totally novel. And this is not like, just to make it very clear, this is not at all our final list. It's just to try to give you guys an update of where we are in the process. So where we are in the process is at brainstorming level. So you're here for the brainstorming. And certainly if folks have input and they want to share with us, that I would be very open to taking that back to our group as well.
So I think, just so I'm understanding, my input that I want to put in is that I believe that RDAP has already come up with that list of what we think should be prioritized or is most impactful and discretionary. And so my direct question is the I don't know if we need to participate in a brainstorm because we've already done that. And so my question is whether that information is already being used rather than recreating that. Is your list that you all are coming up with mirroring that or understanding that we've actually already done that work? Because I hear basically, I think all the things that we talked about, but I don't know. It sounds like what you said. It's a brainstorm for you where we ended up having to get a little more nitty gritty of prioritization, and so I think what I'm hearing is you're just not there yet. But what I'm saying is I believe that we already went there, and want to make sure that you're aware of that so you don't reinvent the wheel, and that we feel valued in, or I'll say for myself, I feel valued as part of this group and the work that we put into doing that.
Yeah. I will share with you about our group that I think it's it's just coming from, things in a slightly different way. We have a spread across like technical and non-technical people. For some folks, some of this is a new idea. I know for you folks, none of this is new. Like you've already like come up with it and um written reports about it and done a lot of work in doing exhaustive lists and then also prioritizing within those lists. So it's not that we're unaware, yes, and lived it, Sheila. Um, it's it's not that we are trying to um recreate something or like redo something that wasn't done well. That's not the intention. The intention for us is to really probably narrow it further because those RDAP recommendations are so broad that um we're I think the reality of it is the division is up against agencies with, oh, this thing isn't available, or this like if there's things that aren't available but are important, um we want to pivot toward troubleshooting that instead of like going for the what's most available for data. But certainly when we go back and revisit our brainstorm, we will be looking more at what RDAP has already done. It's certainly not meant to replace that.
Any other, Sheila, does that, sorry, now I'm seeing it, Rebecca.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, Rebecca.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you for the update. And following up with Sheila's concern, I wanted to just put the actual report date just to make sure it's before you, because I found that list that Sheila was recalling, and accurately that we did a list within a list, a priority of items within the general list. And again, I'm assuming but just to make sure we have it clear tonight, it looks like it's starting on page 6 of our December 1, 2020 report. And that is page 6 is starting our priority list. And it's this, I'd forgotten we did this, but man, we did do a lot of work on it.
Yeah.
And it was 2 columns, and one was our priority list of desired information data collection points within the larger list. The second column was CRG saying what was and wasn't currently available. So I just wanted to make sure that was there in case
Yes, we are very, very aware of this document. And yeah, and it's some of um some of the defining things also will be like that I've heard members of our group bring up is making sure that those definitions are actually defined in a way that we're getting what we expect and it's consistent. So there might be like a little more I can't say this word. We might be able to operationalize some of the data points that you have identified a little bit further. It doesn't, but yes, we're aware of this. We look at it, and we will definitely be looking at it a lot as we go through this process more.
Thanks, Grace. Anything else, Rebecca?
No, thank you.
Yep.
Not the cleanest link in the world, but I just put in the chat the link to the December 2020 report. And as Rebecca said, I think page 6 is where those data categories are listed. Sheila.
So I'm going to lean in for a moment. So thank you, Rebecca, and thank you for providing information. And if we're able to drop that in the chat too, so for other people who don't have direct access to that document, that'd be cool for people to be able to reference that and look at that. But I appreciate that you have the actual document and that you're familiar with it, Grace.
Yeah.
What I want to say is
Mm-hmm.
that I guess since I feel like even though it's not the new year, I feel like we're starting off new because we had a break. And so I'm just gonna pretend this is new, even though this will be a repeat of what I've said in the past. And you don't probably know me that well, but I get very, very agitated when, and this is not about you, just so it's clear. I get very, very agitated when we replicate data, because we spend a lot of money and a lot of people power on gathering a lot of different types of data that overlap, and do nothing with it.
Yeah.
Do not listen often to the most impacted people or to the people that are volunteering to bring this information to the forefront. And so I just want to say that now that I have no idea what your job description looks like and how much time is focused on particular data that's related to the things we're doing in RDAP, and I don't necessarily need to know, but I will say that if this conversation is the same and a few months from now, it's going to really agitate me because I guess I need to understand more of what's really happening and what I mean. I think you said you work for the state. Of what?
No, I do not work for the state. I'm a volunteer. I'm the co-chair of the RJSAC. I work for UVM.
Awesome. So I'm always just wondering about that, and then just having you go around in circles, whether you're a volunteer or not. So
Sure.
there's I just want to express that to be
Mm-hmm.
very mindful of what is already out there and the people who have been on the ground doing it, and to not have people run circles on you. I'm going to leave it at that.
Yep, I hear you. Thank you, Sheila.
And I appreciate also going back to that. I looked at that report probably more than a year ago, and it's helpful to see it contextualized that way. The RDAP data fields. Anything else for Grace? Okay, thank you, Grace. Appreciate it. And we'll look forward to hearing more as that takes shape. As you can tell, I think we're pretty invested in how that work moves forward. Okay, Susanna, over to you.
Okay. We have, so in a previous meeting, this full group discussed the vacancies that we have in this group and agreed that we would try to fill them, and that we wanted to do so in a way that was inclusive, and that really was not just sort of hand selecting members like a crane game. So we put together a form through which people could nominate people to be members. That form's purpose is to be to collect to collect nominations for membership, and then have that reviewed by the appointing authorities who have to make those appointments. Right now, the vacancies are from the Attorney General and the Racial Equity. So those are the appointing authorities who are going to be utilizing the results of that nomination form. So I'm going to paste the link in the chat to that form momentarily. And we have set a deadline for October 1st for people to submit it. We'd like to share it out as broadly as we can. Thank you, Todd. We'd like to share it out as broadly as we can to make sure that we get a really good swath of options. So we're going to encourage you all to please share this with community members or anybody else who you think could use it. And again, we put an October 1 deadline. I don't know if that's too little time. That's less than a month now. And I want to make sure that we do this thoughtfully and in a way that we get good input. So agnostic on due date, but the form is there. It's really simple. It's 5 questions, and it gives some explanatory language in the beginning. Thanks, Todd, for the screen share. While I was getting kicked in the face. This time, literally, usually just metaphorically. Any thoughts on the form itself or the process that this group should go through in terms of membership?
Now I'll stop sharing so we can see each other, but folks can click on the link and take a look as we move along.
Can you
I
ask
think I did it and it was easy. It was easy to complete and it works. So, yeah.
You were going to say, Sheila?
I was just, can you ask that question again, Susanna?
Yeah, the question was, if anyone has had a chance to look at the form, then do you have edits or other thoughts on it? And the second question was, does this group have any new or additional thoughts on what process we should be going through to recruit members? Does this still feel like a good path to take?
I'm going to just say words rather than thumbs up that yes, it's a good path to still take. I think it's great putting it out to the community, people making nominations in a more broader, slightly sort of more a little anonymous than being like, oh, I'm on camera and I'm going to make these things right now. So I like that and getting it out into our communities. I've said in the chat, maybe at least until October 15th, because a lot of people have newsletters that come out on the 1st or whatever that could maybe help with spreading the word. My thing about process, I'll have to think about that more, but the first thing that comes up for me that I'm curious about what this group thinks about is around racial dynamic. And I can't remember within the bylaws, and maybe we'll get to that or whatever. I don't know if we have something like of that as a group, if there needs to be so many people of color, a majority of people of color to be in standings in the statute, or maybe that's not a thing because you can't do that. I don't know. But I can't remember that, and I'm sort of curious about that. And I'm curious about, yes, having people from the community be on this panel. And I want to make sure that we're still inviting specifically people of color and hopefully creating a majority voice of people of color on this panel for the work that we're doing. So those are sort of questions / curiosity that I have so far.
I'm happy to, the bylaws piece, I'm not aware of any specific demographic breakdown other than a broad statement, but that's something we can certainly talk about. And I think, as you flagged, Sheila, there are some legal challenges that we'd have to be thoughtful about in terms of how we move, how we look at ensuring that we create a panel that is reflective of the experience of communities of color in Vermont. But just personally, I have no concerns about ensuring that we get a majority voice or something like that. And I think part of the process here was to ensure that it wasn't insular to the appointing authorities, that it was an ability to really broaden the sort of top of the funnel so that we can get as many names and as broad lived experience as possible.
I will say that one piece just on the logistics would be, and sorry, I'm a little bit fuzzy on the dates, so if anybody knows them, then jump in. But I know that I think this group's year kind of starts around this time. It feels like it starts around this time. What I'm trying to say is, like, in terms of, you know, the statute says every year they shall elect a chair or whatever. I don't know if we're delaying that cycle at all, depending on when we do this recruitment. I don't know that it matters. You know, in other words, if we don't find people until February, does that mess things up in terms of you know, selecting leadership or anything like that? Do we want new people to be part of those decisions and feel that it's necessary to wait for them, or do we want to move on some of that stuff and let recruitment take whatever time it takes? And then the other point on representation, I think, is an interesting one, because I think that's when you start getting into intersections, right? So we talked about members of the community and state folks, and of course, each of us state workers is also a member of a community. And so I think that, for what that's worth, matters. And then you have some folks who are people of color who do work for the state, and some who are not, who don't work for the state. And so I think us being able to get a good swath of people is going to make it really rich, I think. I think that a lot of times there's a perception that when you're in a room of mixed company with state folks and non-state folks, I think for a lot of people, there's a perception that state-affiliated people tend to have power in the room. But I'm in a lot of rooms where state people feel and are rendered utterly powerless. And so I think voice is important and perspective is important, but there's gradations to all of it. So I guess I want us to be thoughtful and see it more as a continuum than really clear-cut categories that people can be sorted into.
Thanks, Susanna. Any other thoughts or questions on this? Yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you. I should probably know this, but I don't. But what are like the mandatory slots we need to fill, like beyond kind of like community stakeholders and representatives or state? Like is there a law enforcement? There's I think a judge. Like where are we with those positions? I know Dan Bennett is I think on this panel representing VSP. Thank you.
You mean
Okay.
just for the vacancies or broadly speaking?
I'm sorry, just for the vacancies.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So
sorry.
So one of the vacancies is from the one of the vacancies is from the Office of Racial Equity, and that person's supposed to be a community member who has I'm going to get it wrong, but something like a community member who has expertise in data.
Okay. So not a staff member of your staff? Okay.
No, I mean, again, it's like we're treating community member as being mutually exclusive from state employee,
Right.
even though
Right.
state's the largest employer in the state, so that cuts out a lot of people. But yeah, a non-state employee who has expertise in data.
Interesting. Okay. Is that the only one?
Oh, thanks. Todd put it in the chat, so that's more specific. That's the only vacancy I have.
Okay.
And then there are two vacancies from the AG's office, and it's slightly different, representing the interests of communities of color throughout the state, and then its experience implementing racial justice reform.
Okay.
And then, as I think Susanna said at the top, we also don't have a representative from the judiciary.
Yeah, I think that would be
It is
really crucial to have.
I will. It also may be that I just there's a communication loop there that hasn't been closed.
No, okay.
Yeah. Well, it's important that we follow up with the chief superior judge and figure out.
Yeah. That Judge Zonai? Yeah.
And I can follow up after this meeting. And other people are also welcome to do that. I don't hold that.
Thank you.
Other questions or concerns, ideas, thoughts, reactions? I think it sounds like I certainly didn't hear any concerns with Sheila's recommendation to bump it at least out to October 15th, and would echo what Susanna said, which is it's not an arbitrary deadline, but it's more meant to motivate nominations rather than hinder nominations. Okay. Hearing nothing. I think, Susanna, if we can just amend it to the 15th, and then if folks can share that link out with networks and as best we can, continue trying to expand the top of the funnel. Okay. Anything else on that? All right, Rebecca, over to you to give an update on the plan for the legislative subcommittee.
Okay, thank you, Todd. So recapping quickly, this subcommittee was something we all landed on at our last meeting to create and continue the work done. I don't even know how much earlier, before January 2025, where there was another subcommittee formed to draft, pull together our recommendations as to what were key ideas, criteria for a proposed bill to present to the legislature on a law implementing an equity impact assessment tool, something requiring the legislature to use to assess laws prior, or proposed laws prior to enactment, to try to force that analytical work on specific questions as to what will be the impact really on for certain demographics if this bill is passed. So that was the broad idea. We started and have done so much great work. And actually looking at what the subcommittee did earlier this year before we ended in the summer, took a recess in the summer, what ended up happening, a bit of politics, a bit of timing, that short form bill, a version of that was never heard this legislative session. And we are now getting into the second year of the biennium. And so the work done last year on it, both here but also in the legislature, was not for naught. There's momentum building. Representative Arsenault was a key supporter, a coach of this in the legislature. Todd, Lisa, Susanna, Laura, I think too, were working on this last year. And so a short form bill was drafted. And I think pulling together our primary, again, concerns, objectives of what should get into it. So here we broke, the session broke, and now we're preparing to present a more detailed version of fleshing out the ideas in more detail, to provide more useful guidance to legislative council, when they start drafting proposed bills. And my understanding is that that time frame when the legislative council starts work on that is it November 1 or November 15? Is it a deadline or a goal? I'm going to pause here for a moment. Yeah.
I would say that I think they're starting now-ish, and there's a deadline after which, bills may not be requested, and that I can look that up right now. It's in January, I believe.
Okay. So I think then the way that we were working in this subcommittee, so we we got some members to recommit to this subcommittee work and come back here this fall to this group. Again, diving deeper into that work done before and getting more details to then give to Ledge Council within a date that was not waiting to the absolute deadline, January. Certainly we're not going to be able to meet this current work being done now in drafting those bills. So I think loosely the goal was November. And I don't know, and again, Todd, I'll defer to you what you recommended, but that leaves our October meeting when RDAP meets, and then possibly a second to basically lock into what the subcommittee is going to pull together and present and share with the group in more detail. And our goal is to have that draft ready to go for our next meeting in October. We met the end of August, and this subcommittee that met in summer, Todd and Laura and Angela and Susanna and Derek and myself. And so what we did in August was sort of dust off the cobwebs and figure out where we were with this and plan, gave everyone homework to pull together what we wanted and also what our goals were. And what we decided was we definitely didn't have the bandwidth to do what we did for the data and entity work a few years ago. We weren't going to go into proposing draft language for the bill itself. Again, we were just going to flesh out the ideas and the very broadly based criteria that we have as a panel previously landed upon in past meetings. And so to that end, we are trying not to reinvent the wheel. We learned from each other, reminded each other at that meeting that there were past bills by the legislature having considered this. And the earliest one we could find, Angela found, Todd, remember, 2010, 2009. So we have that, and then something more recent. So we're looking at what was and has been considered by the Vermont legislature in the past. We are looking at legislation, draft and past versions of these laws in other states, and trying to borrow from that and best practices. So, and I think too, Derek, you were going to also dive into sort of what are the objectives and also making sure how do we get the voice and input from the community in and before the legislature? How are these assessments going to be done? We've struggled as a panel in our past meetings on how and what should be the best practices or goals. And so we also have a piece of our subcommittee members diving deeper into that. So hopefully stay tuned. We're meeting again at the end of this month. And for those on the subcommittee, I'll be sending out some meeting day email plannings, and we'll pull those pieces together and have something ready for the next meeting, October. We can then present and gather your concerns, comments, take that and meet again in October, and I think have the final version ready for us to review and vote yes or no in November. Does that sound what we talked about? Sound like what we talked about for others here on the subcommittee?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's it. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
I don't know, Rebecca, if you saw Angela Arsenault put in the chat the deadline. So it is December 1 for requests for standard form bills, with a pretty tight turnaround. And so I think the timeline works. We'll just have to have it be ready, and it'll dovetail a little bit with what we end up doing with the November meeting and how we end up meeting.
Okay, great. Great. Yeah, thank you for that.
Other questions for Rebecca and that group? Thank you for that work. I think that's an important piece of what we got. Okay. Quick check-in, 7:15. It's been a while since I had to turn a light on in my office. I was just having a moment of like, dark. It's real. So the next thing on the agenda was to talk a little bit about bylaws and leadership structure. So by way of a reminder, we had talked a little bit about, and Susanna sort of flagged a piece of this, sort of like, well, what is our year, and what are the positions we've got, and I think we'd also talked about leadership structure being, one of the issues that Eitan flagged was how much weight sits on the chair, and is there a way of sharing that weight out, creating other leadership structures that, again, still either work with the statute, or would we want to request statutory changes for RDAP? And so with that in mind, I don't need to go through the whole thing if it's not useful to people, but I did walk through a kind of outline mock-up of potential bylaws that we could consider. And again, I think understanding statutorily we operate as an advisory panel. We're not really a board that operates independently with an independent organization. This would more be what I would term like the rules that we write on the back of the game box, right? It's kind of like, how do we choose to operate as a board and an entity, small b board? Again, making sure that we hew to what the statute requires, but then, what are our kind of operating instructions? Oops, I apparently have raised my hand unintentionally. It will probably, click that button. So if folks have the energy, I will share my screen once again, and we can just look at, I'll walk through this pretty rough document that I put together. I'm game for as much discussion and conversation as people want to have. I think we've touched on some issues that are in this potential outline. Well, it's not a potential outline, it's an actual outline, but potential bylaws. And certainly it is open for other areas of discussion. How do we want to engage? Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate your time. So very quickly, and organizing it just the way my brain thinks, so certainly no pride of authorship or requirements to do it this way, but let's talk about membership. Well, membership is laid out. That's an incorrect site. It's 3VSA, but I should just correct all those sites because they're all wrong. So looking at this, we've talked through the membership. I think most of these members are membership categories are filled. I think this is also an important thing to remember, that there are terms, staggered 4-year terms. I'm not sure how closely we hew to these requirements. So essentially, we're supposed to roll off in kind of groups. And filling vacancies, there's also a limitation. Members can't serve more than 2 consecutive terms, so there's kind of an 8-year term limit out there. What we don't have is, if you take a year off, can you come back? That's it, 8 years for your entire life? So there's some other things to think about that way. But I think it's probably worth at least considering, and maybe managing it to some extent, just making sure the appointing authorities, especially, but also all the appointing authorities, because I think with very few exceptions, we are all appointed by someone, all members of the panel, whether it's a community appointment or an appointment based on a position within state government. The other thing I want to flag, especially for those community appointees, is that folks should be getting per diem compensation. I recognize that's probably tailed off with the lack of travel, but I just want to make sure folks are aware of that. Any other thoughts, responses? I know it's like not the most interesting topic, so I don't want to drag people through it on a Tuesday at 7 p.m., but I also want to at least engage in a conversation we've had a few of. I'm just going to keep rolling because I know this group will not be shy.
Sheila put something in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
She said, can we go over this again with the pay?
Yeah, so I'm happy to talk to you about it, Sheila.
Oh, sorry.
we can look at what the per diem is. I don't know it off the top of my head, but there's a statutory per diem.
It's just $50.
Okay, that's what I thought it was. It's not very much. I
Things
don't
changed,
know.
and I think Anne was handling it, and like
Yeah.
I don't know if other people are accessing it, but I know that I haven't accessed it in a long time, and I would love to.
Yeah, and I think that's precisely why I put it in here. Is I don't feel like people are doing it, and it is your not only like theoretically the rest of us are getting paid for this time. You should as well. Your time is very valuable. And actually, separate and apart from this, Sheila, if there are logistical challenges there, like if there are hurdles or friction in that system, I would love to know that to just make it as easy as we can.
Thank you. I'll be in touch.
Please. Okay, rolling on meetings. So we have a maximum actually.
Todd,
Yeah.
actually, can I actually bring something up about that I think it would be good in this public meeting, actually? I think that's really important for people to understand and realize, and those who are community members and those who might watch or view back and watch this or want to volunteer. I think, obviously we could get paid more of a per diem to be a part of this group, but I'm happy that there's at least something. But what I've noticed is around tax time, it is considered as if I have to pay taxes on this money, and it becomes another job for me. And even though it's a little bit, it still puts me in a hardship that doesn't equal the effort that I'm putting out, and it's actually been a hardship in that way. So I'm wondering, I don't know if because it's a state sort of entity or a continuation of what the rules are, but I would love for it to explore of not putting that hardship on people. And I know it must not be just the RDAP. I know it must be probably the system across
All
the
of them.
board.
Yeah.
But I've been told there are ways to do things differently, and I would love for the state to think about ways of doing that differently, especially when it's really might be significant amount of money for people who are receiving it, but in an overall scheme of things it's not. And when you're having to pay taxes and do and be considered a certain way as like another job when it's not really another job, it's just it's interesting and
Yeah.
can create barriers that I think that people should be aware about.
Totally appreciate that. I think, that's got my brain worrying a little bit in terms of we can do certain things on, it's like, oh, well, we'll just ask the legislature to pass a statute that makes it tax-free, but that doesn't work for the feds. So are there other ways of treating the income for tax purposes to minimize the impact? Because $50 is $50 unless it costs you $48 to deal with that $50, right? Yeah, thank you. I don't have any answers on that, but thank you. Definitely worth more conversation. And I think you're right. It's not just RDAP. There are 250 boards and commissions or something like that.
Yeah, and it's a hard thing. It's a vulnerable thing to bring up. So I just thought I'd be that person.
Appreciate you doing it. I wrote it down not on this, but on my little pad of paper right here. It's like things for me to do after this. Okay, good to move on to meetings. So this limitation is actually tied to the per diem, ironically, or maybe not ironically, but they always put a limitation on the total number of meetings because when there are per diems attached to it, it means that there's a fiscal impact to that board and body. This is my understanding. Anybody feel free to correct me on this. And therefore, they have to put a maximum so that they can create a line item in the budget to cover it. So that's something to consider if we feel like we've discussed this in other spaces, how often we want to meet, especially if we want to be more reactive to legislation, and what would that mean? It's mostly flagging that there is a limitation on the total number of meetings, at least per the statute. I just put in what a quorum looks like and what voting looks like. Other topics that I throw out there that other boards, other state-related boards is mostly what I was looking at. Adoption of a regular calendar so that folks know, okay, we know because it's the second Tuesday, but especially if there are only 10 meetings, sometimes we're a little flexible on when those meetings occur. And I would flag that really, I think this is our 9th meeting. I'm sorry, 8th meeting. I think that we can have 2 more, but we should think about that as we look at November and all the work we've got to get done. Then, something later for this conversation is, do we want to have any number of meetings that have to occur in person or not? What special meetings look like and how we officially announce those, especially as a public body, how we respond to open meetings, how we do minutes. Do we want any kind of we don't really have a formal decision-making structure. It hasn't seemed to matter, but I think there have been times in the past where there have been more contentious issues, and does the structure matter? You can tell that a lawyer was looking at all this stuff. So I throw those out there. I don't know if people have other thoughts or reactions to any of that. People want to marinate on it. People don't care. All those things. Yeah, Rebecca.
I'd be curious if others want to share. Oh, I'm sorry. If others want to share, I'd be curious what your opinion is as to meeting in person, even if it's just once a year. I used to, as a member of this panel for a while, and we used to regularly have in-person meetings. I do miss the value added of the in-person generally, but particularly when we met in person for this panel.
I personally, this is Sheila. Oh, sorry, Lisa. I personally think that that's great, and I was thinking the same thing, just at least once a year to come together and maybe we could depending on how we did that, maybe we could do it in a way that allows us to get there a little earlier, later, whatever, eat, do what we need to do to take care of ourselves, because obviously if we're meeting at the same time, it's during the eating time and all that stuff and traveling and whatever. So as long as we make it worth it for all of us to be able to get together and eat some food, I think that we can swing it at least once a year.
Other thoughts, reactions?
Yeah, Todd, I would echo Rebecca and Sheila. Like, I would love to meet at least once a year. It'd be great to kind of collaborate and build relationships with one another in person. I'm not sure if I brought this up before to this entire committee, but I think I've mentioned it to Todd about the timing of this meeting. And 8 o'clock is late for me and it's not about me, but it is late. And I just wonder if like there's any way we could shift, like maybe even 5 to 7 or 5:30 to 7:30 or something like that. And then the other thing that I would like to know, and maybe we don't know, but are we on the topic of leadership yet, officers, or no? Huh?
We're about to be, I think.
Okay, well, I could wait until you open that avenue.
So I hadn't set this up this is great brainstorming. I hadn't set it up to make real decisions on any of this, but I think both of these topics, in-person meetings, there's another agenda item coming up on this, which I think will be fruitful. And then timing of meetings, I think, is another good one for folks to put some thought into, especially, as we look at how to balance community members who are working a full-time job and then doing this on top of it, which is not to say that state employees are not doing the same thing, some of us. But that's, life is complex, so I think we got to bring all those issues up and then figure out what we can come up with. Sheila.
So I like the idea of shifting. I think a 5:30 to 7:30 might allow that little bit of a give for people who get out of work at 5, and for those who 8 it's too late for. I think also if you're talking about parents, especially parents who are either single household or only ones there at bedtime, 7:30 is like a general bedtime for a lot of kids. So a lot of parents I'll hear will be struggling to be on this call because like it's like okay, maybe I can have them watch something or do something or whatever, but now we really got to go to bed. So it might also help create more equity of who could be on this panel, and or for those who might find themselves in that situation themselves.
Yeah, I think those are all really important concerns. And I think access and equity are a huge piece to how and when we meet, whether in person and the timing. So I'm going to let those both sit, but captured and plan to come back to them. Anything else on meetings? Now I'm starting to pay attention to how much time we got left in this meeting. Officers and leadership.
Is there I had a question around, is there a statute around how much time must be given for a special meeting? You talked about special meetings up there. I didn't want to just brush over that.
Totally. Thank you for flagging that. So I'm not going to quote it, but public meetings generally require on a special meeting a 24-hour notice, and on a regular meeting, I think it's a week, or it might be slightly less than a week, posting the agenda and listing it on an official calendar. I don't think we're likely to have that kind of time pressure. This was mostly up there to just flag, we've had one special meeting, at least in my experience. Do we want to set some parameters around how that happens? I think the statutes do control some measure of that, but 24 hours, I think, would be pretty tough for this group to pull together if we had to. So that was really the only reason I floated it. I don't know if you've got thoughts, opinions on that.
I probably do. They're not completely formulated yet, but one of the things I will say is that I think it's really important, especially for us as well as the public, to know what our process is. So it's just about being clear and being transparent about whatever we decide. So if we need to do the base minimum as what the statute says, and then start from there as our discussion, that's probably good. So if you're saying, oh, it's 24 hours, I totally agree. That's unrealistic for this body to try to come together. And if you said it's like a week in general, maybe we align with that, because I think we struggle with that as it is. So, if it's a special meeting, meaning that there is some type of urgency to it, that's usually what a special meeting is called for. And or a particular topic, but usually there's some type of timing around a special meeting that, and maybe that's assumption. Maybe people can lean in with me with an assumption, but a lot of my experience has been like, we need to have this as soon as possible because there's some decisions that need to be made, and that's why we're having this special meeting. So not wanting to push it really far out, but also wanting to consider not only ourselves, but the community to weigh in on whatever it might be that we are discussing or doing.
Which you flag the other half of that bullet point, which is notice and how we provide notice. And at this point, right, what I tend to do, have tended, by which I mean for this one meeting that I've actually felt like I had to run all the pieces, I just send the email out to everybody who's on the invitation, right? And so by way of example, one email, went to Don Stevens, who's the chief of the Melhegan band, and it went to the wrong address for him, and then he and I got in touch otherwise, and like Dale obviously is sitting in what was Chief Stevens's. Anyway, point being, it's not a well-oiled machine, and I have concerns about transparency as far as that is concerned. So we try and put things out through the very bureaucratic, the website, the Department of Libraries website, they're on our website, but I'm not sure that's as effective as a blast email. I also don't want to bog down emails for people who don't need this information. So I float that as folks have thoughts around what is helpful. I don't think we have any non-directly engaged in this work members of the public with us, because it'd be interesting to hear sort of what's helpful for them to learn this. Orca obviously always has it, but I think notice is another, how we spread the word on any special meetings. Okay, I'm going to move us forward just in the interest of time. Officers and leadership was kind of an important, so I'm going to float this out there, and again, we can have this be a future topic of conversation. The only officer stated in the statute is the chair, elected biennially. So, thinking of other leadership structures, we could create other officers, a vice chair, a secretary to sort of run the minutes. A past chair sometimes is a helpful sort of mentor role, but also sharing some of that leadership and institutional knowledge. You know, having an executive committee that kind of can make some not binding decisions, but high level structural decisions, and also be a sounding board for the chair, whether that's a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary, or sometimes people do a like chair, past chair, future chair. Just thinking again about how to share the load so that we don't burn the leadership out quite as quickly. And then questions about like how we elect officers, what their terms are, things like that, which I think largely can just mirror the existing. Any other thoughts on that? Yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Todd. I wanted to kind of highlight that this is I think a really important agenda item that we should spend some time in the next meeting talking about and determining, and mostly because you know, in my short time that I've been on this panel, and knowing Aton professionally and personally, I know the amount of stress and work that the oversight of this panel was as the chair, and I don't want that to repeat itself. So I'm always in favor of additional officers or some type of executive committee structure. Excuse me. And then my only question is, if we did have a secretary, would that take care of the note taker position? Like, I don't know if like it's a statutory thing with the note taker, or if like, I mean, I feel like a secretary's like role partly would be to capture the meeting notes. So I just wanted to flag that.
Yeah, there is nothing in statute about the note-taking position, unless, Grant, you want to disabuse me of that notion. My actual thought, Lisa, was to kind of, it would be a dual role. One, it's hard to take the minutes and participate in the meeting. And so like asking a member to do that is challenging. I don't see a reason, and it's a good way to engage other people with this work and do it in a meaningful way that's, you know, remunerated. The thought behind the secretary, one, is it's just like, you know, that's like a traditional board position. And my real thought was like, it's another person on the board who can oversee the minutes and work with the note taker to kind of polish them up. I just asked Anne candidly to reread them for me so that there was another set of eyes on them being like, I don't even understand what you're saying here. Clearly I'm missing something, but that was the only thought there. And to kind of have a member who's like moving the minutes along.
That makes sense. Yeah. Thank you.
No, thank you for those other points. I likewise personally support an executive committee structure. Duties, I think Sheila raised a really good point. Aton had offered to give us an outline of what the chair does, and I think I will follow up on that. I sort of just flag the ones that I think of as the chair, putting the agenda together, facilitating the meeting, which is not necessarily, you know, we could also have a structure where we pass facilitation around to members. The chair is just really kind of holding the space. There are a lot of different ways to think about that one. Orienting new members, I think it's really helpful when new folks come on to be able to provide them with institutional knowledge. We could create a mentorship structure there as well, where it's, you know, different people work with different new members, but just throwing these ideas out there, appointing members to committees, things like that. Vice chair, secretary, just to your point earlier, Lisa, like exactly what is that role? Is it taking them? Is it finalist? Any other thoughts on that one? Okay. Committees, I really do feel a little time pressure, so I'm happy to just share this document with folks if that's helpful for people to just take a gander at it and offer thoughts. I think this will be a longer process. Mostly I'm interested in just the feedback of like, we don't care about that at all. We really care about this, because I don't think we need bylaws that are soup to nuts rules of the road. So these were just the committees I sort of threw out there. You know, if we continue doing legislative work, should we have a standing legislative committee or should we make it ad hoc? The biennial report, how we govern this panel, an executive committee, a committee of interest, which I just like that phrase from Susanna. Or was it you, Lisa? I can't remember. The committee of interest. Anyway.
I don't remember either.
Okay. And then this is a longer conversation that I won't belabor right now, but it is one that, right, we did a little, Susanna put together, or folks at ORE put together that form about sort of how do we vision and think about what RDAP does. So I just flagged, there are a lot of things on here that are in statute. I've raised my hand again carefully, that we don't need to do anymore, that have passed by, etc. So there's some need, I think, to clean some of this language up, but I just flag it there for everybody. And that's it. So more to talk about there. I feel like we've got some pieces. I've flagged a few that are worth doing. I'm happy to keep picking away at it. I don't really want to distill it into like bylaws language until we get a better sense. So what I may ask of the group is I'll send it out. I don't think it's the kind of thing that I would ask everybody to go through and like comment on everything, but as things arise, it'd be really helpful to have your input on them. Also, given like, I think October is going to be really focused on the legislation that we're likely to propose, I will table this absent objection until November or later, and we'll pick it back up and just keep picking away at it. Does that all make sense? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you for walking through that. Okay, we already touched on this, but the next item on the agenda is an in-person meeting in the fall, which a couple people have spoken to this, but I just want to open it up because it's come up in a number of conversations. Thoughts, feelings, reactions, recognizing, you know, we do span the state in terms of where people live.
Are we thinking about locations?
To do it and then where to do it, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think I don't really know where everyone is geographically representing on this screen, but I would welcome folks to come to the Academy in Pittsford, Vermont. So it's between Rutland and Brandon or Middlebury, I guess, depending how you look at it. But we would certainly be able to house everybody, and we have obviously classroom space and things like that. We'd even be able to do some type of hybrid if folks couldn't work.
That
Couldn't
really
come.
helped with the flag.
Yeah. Oh yeah, VLGS. That's pretty central too.
I think two were VLGS in South Royalton, Hartford Municipal Office, I think was used a couple times in White River. Are there, yeah, go ahead, Rebecca.
No, and I would only add that we'd met a few times at the Waterbury facility, but I don't know where. I don't know if others remember, but
So I want to just back us up. Does anyone have concerns with meeting? And I will say if people are uncomfortable, I'm happy to have conversations offline on this, but do people have concerns about trying to meet in person as soon as October? Assuming we can, part of me is just wants to think about snow and snow travel and avoiding that for people, which heaven forbid we have to deal with that in a month. I'm not emotionally prepared for that. Go ahead, Sheila.
I don't know if I'm prepared to travel in October or not. But what I did want to say is that Rebecca, the place in Waterbury was the like where they have the DCF office too and the headquarters and stuff. But I would, I'm just gonna be a little blunt. I feel my experiences in buildings like that have guards and officers and check-ins and locked doors and all these things, no offense, Lisa, I don't know if I want to meet at the academy. I don't know, I don't think I want to meet up in Waterbury. I would like to have more neutral places where I feel safer, that doesn't replicate some of the systems and people that have harmed me. And so I have not only have had that own my own experience with being on different command panels and committees like this, but the community who does want to show up too sometimes, they've expressed to me as well that it's a barrier. I mean, some places, I think that place you had to have your ID. And so I'm not about meeting in places like that. So I just want to make that really clear that if you have to show an ID and if there's a guard at the door, I would refrain from us meeting at those places, please.
I think that's an important flag, Sheila. Thank you.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I throw my support in with that. So thank you, Sheila. Libraries, I don't know if that's another option to look at. I don't have any particular one to recommend that's middle
We would
area.
meet in Hartford or Heartland, over right outside of White River Junction. The town offices are right there, or there's like the listening center or places of that sort. There is, I mean, if we really want to do that, we can just put it out here to our group. Let's think about it. And there, there's a few central places in the White River, even maybe what is it? Maybe in the Randolph area, like Vermont Tech as well. Like there are some places that are sort of neutral in that area that we can come up with.
That raises another really good point, Sheila. So let me just go step by step for my head. Apologies for forcing that on others. I don't hear any objections to the concept of meeting, so I'm just going to pause on that.
Correct.
Great. It strikes me then that it's about when and where. And I hear some concerns about October, which is totally fair. And I think probably people either aren't looking at their calendars or I'm not asking for a commitment in this moment. I am willing to put out some kind of doodle poll or whatever it is about when in the next series would make the most sense. And if we get a when, then we can start working on the where, recognizing we're looking at, I was thinking that too, Lisa, thank you. Looking at geographically central in Vermont, accessible in terms of, not 10 miles of dirt road to get there. And then accessible in terms of the concerns that Sheila raised and Rebecca echoed, and just in terms of feeling safe and welcoming to the members of this panel, but also community at large. And Randolph is the geographic center. It's always important to remember that. So I'm also happy to throw that out. I don't need to control where we meet at all, but I also know that people have busy lives, and it'd be good to get this done. Rebecca, was that your hand up there for a second?
Just to throw in the when, appreciating before the snow, but also maybe waiting until we get our new members and share.
Yeah, I'm thinking that we might just want to, not rush into it, be like, okay, yes, we all agree we want to meet. Let's do it in the spring then. We got our new members, we're more settled in, we have some repertoire amongst us, and like, let's make it more in the March maybe or April or something and make it like that. I think that's more doable.
Reactions to that from other folks? General comfort. Okay, that's a really helpful organizing principle too. I think that's wise. Okay, that also means I don't have to try and do it next month, which is great. I mean, I'll be honest, I was really psyched to see people in 3 dimensions, but I can also work on that on my own time. Okay, moving
sorry,
right along.
What we land on? We said the spring?
Yes.
Okay. Are half of us going to cancel because we're swamped with session and testimony and crossover?
I think in May.
Huh.
That's fair.
Good point, Susanna.
I'm a bit in denial, but yes, you're right.
I mean, we could potentially do the beginning of November. You know, sometimes we don't catch the snow. Climate change is real. So, and I just want to say, like, I am open to. I can look at my schedule. It doesn't have to revolve around me. I don't want to make it like that. But I just, you know, we might not. Anyway, if people can do it in October, let's do it in October.
So, okay, we're back. I'm happy to send out the doodle poll. Let's see what we can get for October, November, and then spring. Susanna, you're not wrong at all. Also, you know, so we do it once a year. If we can pull it off once this fall, and then we get new members and we do it, you know, maybe it becomes traditionally in June. And
That's a good idea. Yeah.
So, thank you for that. We're running close on time, and at least there's one more thing that's not on the agenda that popped into my head that I'd love to just try and touch base on. So very quickly, November meeting conflict, Veterans Day. Without trying to calendarize right now, is that something people would be comfortable with, just pushing us out a week? And I say that also because December 1st, as we noted, is an important deadline here. So for the legislation, and if we need a further pass at the work, I don't anticipate that. But any objections to November? I think it's 18th.
No.
It's very close to the Indigenous people Thanksgiving. Not close to October. Okay. We will aim for November 18th. Okay, let me pause now. Any public comments? Hearing none. So last thing wasn't on the agenda because it didn't occur to me until a little late. One is a farewell. So we have not a member of the panel, but an important member adjacent to the panel, a member of the public. And I don't know, Susanna, if you want to talk, you want me to talk?
Yeah, I can go in. We are extremely happy, grateful, pleased, excited, satisfied to have had the privilege of working with Angela from our office. All of you have come to know her in some way, shape, or form. You either worked with her on policy, or you've received presentation from her in this meeting, or have probably heard pleasant things from others. Angela is going to be moving on. She is relocating and taking on some new things. And so we are going to have her just until about the end of the month. And so this is going to be her last RDAP meeting.
So thank you, Angela. It has been such a pleasure. I don't know if you want to say a few parting words.
Thank you. That was very sweet. And I've learned so much from you all. So, yeah.
We will miss you and are thrilled that you're continuing on. Relatedly, and thank you again, Susanna. We were just talking offline about any kind of thank you gift or appreciative gift for Eitan, as he, you know, has given so much work and time and effort. So I might say, if folks want to raise their hands, I'm happy to just pull together a quick email string, and I think that's probably the easiest way, as opposed to a giant meeting. But if people have thoughts, feelings on that, and just appreciating Eitan, go ahead, Sheila.
I mean, I just say yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know if it's kosher to say this, but maybe we can get together offline, and cold hard cash is always appreciated. So, but I would love to appreciate him for his work that he's done on a serious note. So, yes, I'm down with whatever committee. So we'll make a subcommittee, the gift committee for Aton. How's that sound?
I love it. So I will send out an email probably. Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
Sorry, I was just thinking, I mean, it would be wonderful maybe if we did a little something at our in-person meeting, if we were able to do it in November and invite Aton as a way of doing some kind of bigger celebration with treats and just like really be able to show up and show appreciation in person, since we're talking about meeting in person anyway. So I just want to throw that out there.
Love that idea, especially if it was closer to the Brattleboro end of thing. Okay, so I'll send that email out to the panel members, and I don't think there are any non-ORE members of the public, and Grace as well. If other folks want in, speak now. Otherwise, it's just going to be the panel, and I'll send that email out. We'll gather the ideas and figure out the pieces.
Todd?
Yes, sir.
Point of clarification, given our structure as a public meeting, and at least some of us being government employees, and we've made it, I think, all but impossible to like engage in gifting with as a state employee. Like I personally am, I echo Sheila your point. Like I just want to express my gratitude and love to Aton and happily do that for my own personal resources, but I'm here as a designee of the Department of Corrections. And if we get into this weird space where we're like producing a gift that has a monetary value as a public body, blah, 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 blah. You get it, yeah. But I think we have to manage those boundaries.
I am happy to put the right words in the email. It will all be done voluntarily, and we'll do it. I appreciate you flagging it. I think it's an important note, both for the record and for our broader, a good reminder. But I'll flag that accordingly. Obviously, there's no obligation to do it, but good to state it. Okay. 7:57. Final thoughts.
Not really.
Other than wanting to get more food recommendations from Sheila in Brattleboro.
Todd, I just want to express my gratitude for your leadership, over the last few months. And I know you've worked really hard on those bylaws, and that you've been meeting with folks, including Susanna and I, over the summer. And I imagine, like everyone else, you're juggling a lot of, in your work. So I just wanted to thank you so much for everything.
Thanks for saying that, Lisa, and thank you for your partnership on a lot of it. And it does make me really appreciate how much Aton has been doing for years. So here's hoping this is a short interim period, but more than happy to do it. Thank you all for the time, the energy. It's good to see you all again. I hope to see you in person in the coming months. And really, I really appreciate the engagement too. A lot of excellent points raised, and I hope I've captured as many of them as I can. And hopefully we'll continue rolling. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your evening. Hopefully this is one of the last times we meet till 8 o'clock.